Nutty Putty Cave Incident. On November 24, 2009, 26-year-old John Edward Jones entered Nutty Putty Cave in Utah with his brother Josh and 9 other friends and family members. Though he was an experienced caver, this was John's first time exploring Nutty Putty. The cave had been closed temporarily in the past after other people became stuck in its extremely narrow passages, but it had recently reopened to visitors with a special permit. Josh had secured one, and the group went in expecting a fun, casual exploration. The beginning of the cave was fairly open, featuring popular routes like the Big Slide and the Maze. However, John and Josh quickly grew bored of the easy areas and started looking for something more challenging. They were particularly interested in a passage called the Birth Canal, notorious for its tightness. John was over 6 feet tall and weighed about 200 pounds, making such tight spots risky, but he was confident. At one point, the brothers misidentified a narrow shaft as the entrance to the birth canal. John crawled into it head first, squeezing his chest through a 12-inch high opening. He believed that just ahead there was a larger space where he could turn around. But he was wrong. The tunnel narrowed further into an uncharted section of the cave that hadn't been mapped. Before realizing the mistake, John slid into an even smaller hole that dropped vertically. He was now upside down and completely stuck in a crevice just 10 inches wide and 18 inches tall. Any movement wedged him in tighter. His chest was compressed, making it hard to breathe. Josh tried to help, but couldn't pull him out. He eventually had to exit the cave to call for help. Rescuers began arriving 3 hours later. They brought ropes and pulleys and attempted several methods to get John out. In total, more than 130 people were involved in the rescue operation. As the night wore on, John remained stuck, his blood slowly pooling in his lower body due to gravity. At first, he stayed alert and even spoke with his wife via a special device. But by the next morning, after spending more than 24 hours upside down, his condition started to deteriorate rapidly. He began hallucinating and his vital signs dropped. At one point, rescuers managed to lift him a few feet using a pulley system. A rescuer even made eye contact with him and gave him Gatorade through a tube. But then the pulley anchor broke loose from the rock, injuring the rescuer and sending John sliding back into the hole. Later attempts to free him failed. His body was becoming too weak to assist in the escape. Finally, after more than 27 hours trapped in that small hole, John Jones was declared dead. His body was never recovered. The section of the cave was permanently sealed, and a plaque was placed at the entrance in his memory. Floyd Collins. Tragedy. On January 30th, 1925, famed cave explorer Floyd Collins ventured into a small cave in Kentucky he had recently discovered and named Sand Cave. The cave was close to a highway and could potentially attract tourists, so Floyd hoped to turn it into a profitable site. However, its narrow, unstable passages made exploration dangerous. On that day, as snow fell outside, Floyd entered the cave with a lantern. He maneuvered past a tight 9-inch high squeeze and descended several vertical pits, eventually reaching a large chamber. As his lantern began to dim, he wisely decided to turn back, but while crawling out in reverse, his lantern slipped and broke, plunging him into total darkness. Unable to see, Floyd accidentally knocked loose a rock that fell onto his left leg, trapping him. Each time he moved, more debris collapsed around him. Trapped in the dark, he began yelling for help. Nearly 24 hours later, locals found him wedged inside the narrow tunnel, completely immobilized. His brother Homer and other rescuers quickly joined, bringing supplies and trying to clear the debris. But freezing temperatures and melting ice from bonfires on the surface created icy mud that flowed into the cave, worsening conditions. Homer stayed with Floyd for hours, feeding him and providing blankets, but the situation grew desperate. Crowds formed outside the cave. Reporters arrived, and news of the trapped explorer spread nationwide. A light bulb was installed inside the tunnel, connected to another on the surface that flickered in response to Floyd's breathing. The crowd watched this small signal anxiously. But then, tragedy struck. A collapse blocked the only entrance to Floyd's location. Digging a new tunnel took too long. By the time rescuers reached him, Floyd Collins had died from exposure and starvation. His body was recovered weeks later, and his tragic story captured the hearts of millions. Kalimba Cave. Tragedy. Cenote diving accident in Mexico. In December 2004, a group of 9 divers was exploring the Kalimba cenote in Mexico. Their plan was to follow guidelines to the bush in cenote and return. The group split into 2 teams. Team 1 would go farther, using more efficient oxygen systems, while Team 2 would turn back earlier. The plan was that Team 2, returning first, would remove directional markers called cookies from the guideline to signal their exit path. Team 1, noticing the cookies gone, would remove their own markers on the way back. Everything went according to plan at first, but when Team 1 returned, Team 2 was nowhere to be seen. Alarmed, Team 1 prepared to re-enter the tunnel. Meanwhile, Team 2 had made a critical error. They had turned left instead of right and swam 425 meters in the wrong direction. They didn't realize their mistake until they were nearly 900 meters from the entrance. Fortunately, another exit was only 90 meters away, but between them and safety lay a dangerous 20-meter gap with no guideline. Kent, one of the divers, tried to cross it with a safety line, but it came up short. He turned back and rejoined the others, who were already low on air. They eventually located the main guideline and began swimming toward the correct exit. Jen shared her air with Bill, whose tank was nearly empty. In tight passages, they had to take turns moving forward while holding their breath. Michael, the least experienced diver, began to panic as his air ran out. Kent arrived just in time and gave him his emergency mouthpiece. Jean and Bill made it out with only 35 bar, around 500 psi, left in her tank, just minutes away from drowning. But when rescuers entered the tunnel again, they found Kent and Michael's bodies just 75 meters inside. They had died only a few minutes from safety. If you're enjoying the video, remember to like, comment and subscribe. Let us know which cave incident shocked you the most and what you want us to cover next.